In the early months of World War II, the situation in Europe was dire. The Wehrmacht, Germany's armed forces, advanced rapidly through countries like Poland, France, and the Low Countries. Their tactics were precise and effective, leaving little room for the Allies to breathe. As cities fell and the landscape shifted, the Allied forces faced overwhelming odds. They needed to turn the tide of the war, and fast. Amid this turmoil, one soldier stood out. His name was Lieutenant John Smith, an officer in the British Army. Lieutenant Smith was not just a typical soldier. He was part of a small group tasked with gathering intelligence and conducting sabotage operations behind enemy lines. He understood that information was power, especially in a time of conflict where every piece of data could mean victory or defeat. John's mission was clear: disrupt German operations and gather vital intelligence that could be shared with Allied forces. The challenges were immense. Germany's military was highly organized and well-equipped, making it hard for any lone warrior to make a difference. Yet, John was determined. He often thought about his family back home and the future they all hoped for, driving him to take risks that others might shy away from. As he prepared for his covert operations, John relied on a band of local resistance fighters. These brave men and women had seen their homes invaded and lived under constant threat. They shared his goal of liberating their land from the Nazi grip. Together, they planned intricate missions, targeting supply lines and communication centers that the Germans heavily relied on. The first task was to gather information about an upcoming German troop movement in northern France. Timing was crucial. The Allies had to know where and when the German soldiers would strike next. With the help of the resistance, John managed to infiltrate a German supply depot, where he discovered critical details about the troop movements. On a starlit night, John and his team crept through the shadows, careful to avoid detection. They moved silently, relying only on the knowledge of the land that the locals provided. Once inside the depot, they took notes and found maps that outlined the German strategy. It was a risky mission, but they successfully slipped away without raising an alarm. Back at their makeshift base, John quickly relayed the information to his superiors. The details he provided were invaluable to the Allied command, allowing them to prepare for the German advance. It felt like a small victory, but it was a stark reminder of the role ordinary soldiers and civilians played in this enormous conflict. As the weeks rolled on, each mission John undertook brought new complications and dangers. Yet, through it all, he maintained his determination to fight back against an enemy that threatened everything he held dear. His resolve, shared by many, became a beacon of hope in a dark time, illustrating the power of courage and collaboration in the face of tyranny. This man was Lieutenant John Howard, a British officer with considerable experience in battling German forces. He had been involved in several crucial missions that provided him with valuable insights into their tactics and strategies. His knowledge made him an essential asset for the Allied operations as the war progressed. With a strong determination to make a difference, Howard was given a daring task: to capture Pegasus Bridge. This bridge was a vital crossing point near the town of Caen in Normandy. Holding this position would ensure easier access for Allied troops moving inland after the D-Day landings. Howard understood that if they could take control of the bridge, it would significantly hinder the Germans' ability to counterattack. For this operation, Howard gathered a small but dedicated team of paratroopers. These men were highly trained and shared Howard's resolve to succeed. They understood the risks they were about to face. Parachuting into enemy territory was no small feat, but their bravery shone through. On the night of June 5, 1944, under the cover of darkness, Howard and his team boarded their aircraft. As they flew over the French countryside, nerves and excitement ran high. They had trained for this moment and were ready to execute their plan. Their mission was clear: land near the bridge, secure it, and hold it until the main forces arrived. As the planes approached the drop zone, Howard remained focused. The jump was chaotic. Some paratroopers landed far from the designated area, and the nighttime landscape was foreign and perilous. But Howard quickly gathered his men and began moving toward Pegasus Bridge, navigating through the darkness with purpose. When they reached the bridge, they found it defended by a small number of German soldiers. Howard and his team engaged in a fierce but swift battle. The element of surprise worked to their advantage. Within minutes, they overpowered the enemy and took control of the bridge. Holding the bridge was only half the challenge. Now they had to defend it against potential counterattacks. Howard quickly set up defensive positions, instructing his men on how to prepare for any incoming German troops. They knew reinforcements would not arrive until later, and they were determined to hold the bridge at all costs. As dawn broke, the tension remained high. The sound of approaching vehicles echoed in the distance, and the soldiers braced themselves. Howard stood firm, reminding his men of their purpose. They were not just fighting for the bridge. They were fighting for freedom and the chance to reclaim their lands from the oppressive grip of the Nazis. The hours dragged on, and the uncertainty of their fate weighed heavily on them. However, Lieutenant Howard's leadership and confidence inspired the paratroopers around him. They were ready to defend their hard-won position, no matter what would come next. On the night of June 5 to 6, 1944, the D-Day invasion began, a pivotal moment in World War II. The air was filled with the sounds of planes as soldiers prepared to jump into Normandy. Lieutenant John Howard and his team of paratroopers felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. They had trained hard for this moment, and now it was time to put their plans into action. As the planes flew over the coastline, Howard's heart raced. He reminded himself of the mission ahead, to capture Pegasus Bridge before the Germans could respond. When the green light flashed, Howard and his men leaped into the dark sky, parachuting down into a world filled with danger. The moment they hit the ground, chaos erupted. Gunfire echoed around them, and flares lit up the sky, revealing the enemy's positions. Howard quickly assessed the situation. Some of his men landed scattered across the area, while others were still struggling to gather their gear. But there was no time to waste. They had to regroup and move out quickly. With determination, Howard called out to his men, urging them to come together. "Form up, we've got a job to do." They gathered as quickly as they could, knowing how crucial every second was. Despite the confusion of the landing, they were trained to act with military precision. Once regrouped, they set out toward Pegasus Bridge, moving swiftly and silently through the brush to avoid detection. As they approached the bridge, Howard led the way with confidence. He signaled to his men to stay low and spread out for better coverage. They could see the Germans near the bridge, unaware of the Bravo Company's arrival. The element of surprise was on their side, and Howard was determined to take full advantage of it. They got into position, and with a few quick gestures, Howard communicated the plan. They would strike fast and hard, aiming to take control of the bridge before the Germans had a chance to react. With adrenaline pumping, they launched their attack. The paratroopers moved with speed and urgency, catching the enemy off guard. The clash was intense but brief. Howard and his men fought fiercely, working together like a well-oiled machine. Within moments, they overpowered the small German garrison stationed at the bridge. Howard's heart swelled with pride as he realized they had secured their objective. But this was just the beginning. Now, they had to hold the bridge until reinforcements could arrive. Howard quickly set about organizing a defensive perimeter, knowing that the German forces would likely regroup for a counterattack. He reassured his men, reminding them that they were not just fighting for the bridge, but for all the brave soldiers landing on the beaches who were counting on them. As the sun began to rise, uncertainty loomed. The men prepared for what was to come, united by their mission and the promise of freedom. Every one of them understood the significance of this moment in history, and they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As dawn broke on June 6, 1944, the first light of day revealed a tense battlefield. Howard's team had successfully surprised the German defenders at Pegasus Bridge. For a moment, everything felt surreal: the hours of preparation, the fear of the night, and now they were actual soldiers in the midst of a crucial fight. The Germans quickly realized they were under attack. Confusion spread through their ranks, but it didn't take long for them to regroup and launch a counterattack. Howard knew the importance of their position. If they could hold the bridge, they could help ensure the success of the larger Allied invasion unfolding on the beaches of Normandy. With a clear head, Howard assessed the situation. He communicated quickly with his men, urging them to stay focused and strategically place themselves in defensive positions. "We need to outsmart them." "Keep your eyes open and be ready to move," he called out, instilling a sense of purpose in his team. The Germans began their assault, coming at them in waves. Howard's men fought fiercely, utilizing every piece of cover available. They engaged in intense firefights, each side determined to control the bridge. Howard's leadership shone through as he directed his troops with clarity and confidence. Whenever they faced pressure, he was there, encouraging them and reminding them of their goal. As the enemy charged, Howard noticed patterns in their attacks. He quickly devised a plan to outmaneuver the Germans, instructing his men to redirect their fire and focus on the points where the enemy seemed the most vulnerable. "Aim for their flanks, we can turn this around," he shouted amid the chaos. This strategic thinking allowed Howard's team to push back hard, frustrating the Germans and giving them a crucial advantage. They held their ground, repelling repeated counterattacks, while remaining acutely aware of the larger operation at play. Every soldier on that bridge understood their significance, knowing that their actions could influence the success of thousands of troops landing on the beaches. As the fighting continued, Howard felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He was not just defending a bridge, he was helping secure the future of the operation. Each shout, each command, was crucial not only for holding the bridge, but also for maintaining the morale of his men. They watched their brothers-in-arms facing peril on the beaches and knew they were all part of a bigger fight for freedom. Despite the exhaustion setting in, Howard's team remained relentless. They fought bravely, holding their position against the odds. As each wave of German soldiers approached, Howard led his men again and again, demonstrating unwavering resolve. They made sacrifices, but the camaraderie they shared only strengthened their bond. The day wore on, and the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting light on the fierce battle at Pegasus Bridge. Howard knew that every minute they held that bridge meant hope for countless others. They were all determined to emerge victorious. Howard's successful capture and defense of Pegasus Bridge turned out to be a pivotal moment, not just for the D-Day invasion, but for the entire operation in Normandy. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, news spread quickly among the Allied forces about the bridge's capture. This was a critical victory. They had managed to secure a key position despite the overwhelming odds they faced. The Wehrmacht, the German army, was left in shock. They had not anticipated that a small group of paratroopers could take and hold such an important strategic location. The Allies' success disrupted the Germans' plans and allowed Howard's men to fend off counterattacks, further weakening the enemy's resolve. Holding Pegasus Bridge meant that other Allied troops could safely advance. It created a secure route for the subsequent waves of soldiers landing at Normandy's beaches. These men were crucial to the broader goal of liberating France from Nazi occupation. Howard's leadership and the bravery of his team had turned a risky mission into a significant success. As the hours passed, more Allied forces began arriving at the bridge. Their presence solidified the gains Howard's team had made and prepared them for the next phase of the operation. Troops carried vital supplies and reinforcements, boosting the morale of all the men who had fought hard to hold that position. Together, they formed a united front against the Germans. For Howard and his paratroopers, the morning of June 6 was filled with a sense of purpose. They had become a vital part of a much larger effort, and their contribution wouldn't be forgotten. As they looked out over the bridge, they saw the waves of soldiers coming to join them, and it filled them with hope and determination. With the bridge secured, Howard felt a weight lift off his shoulders. They had faced considerable challenges and rallied together to overcome them. This sense of achievement motivated them to prepare for whatever challenges lay ahead. Howard knew that this was only the beginning of a long fight, but they had proven they could achieve the impossible. In the aftermath of the battle, Lieutenant John Howard and his team were celebrated as heroes. The victory at Pegasus Bridge was a significant achievement that resonated throughout the Allied forces. Their successful mission showcased not only bravery, but also the resilience required to fight against overwhelming odds. As news spread of their triumph, Howard and his men received recognition from their superiors and fellow soldiers alike. They were applauded for their courageous efforts, which had been vital in securing a key position during the Normandy invasion. The morale boost this brought to the Allied troops was palpable, reinforcing their determination to continue the fight. This pivotal moment altered the course of the Normandy invasion. By successfully holding Pegasus Bridge, Howard's team enabled thousands of Allied soldiers to advance without the fear of being cut off. It became a turning point in the campaign, significantly contributing to the efforts to liberate France from Nazi control. Howard understood that what they had done was part of a larger picture. Each day that went by brought them closer to the ultimate goal, the downfall of Nazi Germany. He often reflected on how their single mission had created ripples that would be felt long after the battle was over. The impact of their success was not just limited to military strategy. It symbolized hope and determination for all who yearned for freedom. People back home and across occupied Europe looked to stories like theirs for inspiration, knowing that brave men were risking their lives to reclaim their liberty. As time passed, Howard and his team were remembered not only for their military accomplishments, but also for the unity and courage they displayed in the face of adversity. Their story became part of the larger narrative of the war, an example of how a determined group of individuals could come together and change the course of history. In the end, Howard realized that one man's mission, supported by a team that shared the same values, could indeed leave a lasting impact. It was a powerful reminder of the strength that comes from solidarity, courage, and the unyielding spirit of those fighting for what is right. The battle at Pegasus Bridge would be spoken of for generations, a shining testament to the bravery that turned the tide in World War II.